What's up, guys? I'm Anthony Tochier, and we're back here at Allegiant Stadium for the first day of Big 12 Media Day. Guys, our coverage continuing, presented by the one, the only Circa. I'm here with the one, the only Bruce Feldman of FOX Sports. Bruce, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us, man.
Good to see you. Good to be out here.
So, for you, obviously, this is a wildly different Big 12 than it's been in the past few seasons. Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, Colorado. What are the early expectations do you have for those schools joining the Big 12?
Well, I think when you had looked at what Arizona has coming back, I mean, they're pretty loaded. Obviously, Jedd Fisch moved on. Some of his better players left. Most of them stayed. I think Brent Brennan walked into a really good situation. I think Utah, I remember being at Pac-12 Media Days last year, and Cam Rising was there. He obviously didn't play. But now he and Brant Kuithe are back. I mean, we know they're really good on defense. I think they're a really dangerous team. We know Kenny has a rebuild at ASU. I thought there was some really cool moments that he had last year. Now you got to keep building, and I think Colorado's the wild card in this because they got off to the fast start. Deion has some frontline talent. We'll see how much better they are on both lines. I think they can't be much worse on the O-line. I don't think they can be any worse, but they've added. I think they should be a pretty good team. I just don't know what pretty good looks like. Does that mean they're going to win 7 games? Does that mean they're going to win 9? This conference is so much parity. I don't have a great sense of what the top 3 is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Colorado being a potential wild card, the rebuild at ASU. Is there a team just out of the 16 that you think could really shock people or maybe just surprise people this season?
I think Iowa State is going to be interesting. Last year, coming into the year, they're dealing with all the fallout that was going on in the state with a gambling investigation, and it cost them some players. And then they got rolling. They had a really good nucleus of young guys. Rocco Becht is a very talented quarterback. The skill guys they have are good. I think this is Matt Campbell's best team. They ended up having a winning record in the Big 12. I wouldn't be surprised if they were a top 25 team this year.
Obviously, Brett Yormark just finished speaking, talking about how he thinks that this conference could be and should be the deepest conference in the country. The SEC, the Big Ten, obviously. Do you feel like that's true, that this conference can be the deepest conference in the nation?
I do, because, I'm looking over your shoulder and they have all the helmets there, and I'm like, Oklahoma State is a team that people thought could be a top 12 team. They have a ton of experience back, the best running back, a really experienced quarterback in Alan Bowman. And then you mentioned the teams that we talked about before, especially at the top, the 2 teams that, come over from the Pac-12. Both Kansas schools are really good. I think UCF, you get KJ Jefferson in there with Gus Malzahn. That's not a good combination if you're a defense to play against that big quarterback who can run in that offense, and they have a really good running back. I feel like there's like 8 teams. I didn't even mention Texas Tech. They're I think, a dangerous team. West Virginia had a really good year. The only teams I feel like are kind of building out, we mentioned the ASU rebuild. I feel like Cincinnati really struggled last year. But this is I feel like there's like 10 teams that I could see possibly win it.
Yeah. There's obviously some interesting quarterback situations throughout the conference. I want to get your opinion just on Jaylen Daniels, a kid with obviously a lot of talent, dealt with injuries throughout his career, looking to have obviously a great season this year. What do you expect from Jaylen Daniels and really Kansas as a whole?
Yeah, I think Lance Leipold's as good a coach as there is in the conference. And Daniels is he's such a playmaker because he's so smart, great decision maker, he's accurate. He's a good fit for the offense. And if you watch them in the bowl game, they have really good receivers. They have a dynamic running back. I think if he can stay healthy, and that's a big if because we know he hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years, they have a chance to be a playoff team. I mean, I think he's that good of a quarterback. He's accurate, and I think you see how he runs that system. I think he's really underrated. It's just the durability issue has been a real thing.
Absolutely. Last question before we get you out of here. Obviously, you bring up Brent Brennan, the Arizona Wildcats, a really loaded roster. What are your expectations for a team that has a quarterback, Noah Fafita, year 2? Obviously, Tetairoa McMillan, a guy people are projecting a top 15 pick in the NFL draft next year. How good do you think this Arizona team can be? And then what is the pressure on Brent Brennan to succeed in year 1 for the Wildcats?
I think the expectation last year, they finished on a 7-game win streak. They won 10 games. The other 2 games they lost were really close. The 3 games they lost were close. They were a really, close-knit team. You saw that hold up through all the transition. I think they should be a 10-win team this year. based off of what they have coming back. It's a more experienced team. I think there's a lot of pressure on Brent because of what's back, you know. And it's interesting because they're in the Big 12, which I think perception-wise, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, yeah, the Big 12 doesn't have Texas and OU. They should be, you know, a heavyweight team in this. It's going to be an interesting year because I could see them, you know, it's hard to be that much better than they were last year. If they do what they finish and they can build off that momentum, they're going to be a playoff team, you know, which to me it's like playoff team or – I want to say playoff team or bust, but that's how it kind of feels like because, you know, T-Mac is an elite player. I mean, I would argue he's the best receiver in college football, and they have a special chemistry between, you know, quarterback and receiver from high school. And, you know, there's so many, like, it's a fun team to watch. It was interesting to watch them at the end of the year. I feel like it's playoff or bust. I don't know if they'd ever want to acknowledge that, certainly as a coaching staff, especially when you're a new coaching staff. Yeah. You know, I think they're one of the most interesting teams in what should be a really fascinating league to watch.
Most definitely. I saw you chatting with Arizona State running back Cam Scatterboot not too long ago. What was that conversation like for you? What did you learn about that Sun Devil running back?
A lot. So I work with Mark Ingram, who's a former, you know, Heisman winner from Alabama, and I feel like we're on the road every week, and that was kind of his like favorite running back a little bit, and we kind of laugh. And one night I told him, I was like, yeah, it's a Friday night, and I found a run you had in high school on film or whatever on YouTube, and you know, I showed it to Mark, and we were talking about it. And so, you know, Cam being whatever 15 pounds lighter in better shape, he was kind of a revelation. You know, I think he's a little bit of a cult hero for a lot of people. He's a fun player to watch. I think Kenny does a really good job. He's super creative with how he utilizes them, and you saw that especially in the UCLA game. So there's a lot. You know, like, I mean, we started talking about like his journey, some of the struggles. He's an interesting guy. You know, it was 15 minutes. It wasn't like, you know, it was an hour sit down, but you know, I think he's one of those guys like, oh, I'm going to watch what they do, you know. In addition to probably having the best helmet here, they're an interesting team.